Welcome to the Power Platform Pro / Code First Developer Office Hours for April. My name is Marc Schweigert. I'll introduce a number of folks who will be attending these office hours moving forward. The agenda today is, and generally speaking, we'll try to take the first quarter to half of the office hours to just provide some updates from various product group members across the Power Platform. We'll talk about ALM updates, some of the Code First Pro Dev tools updates. We've got Robert Standifer coming in to talk about Power Platform Well Architected. We've got Mateus coming in to talk about the Power Platform Terraform provider. Generally speaking, as we build this community, we will also use this as a forum to do things like take polls on feature prioritization that we're seeing trending on our GitHub repos, et cetera, to really encourage upvoting and that sort of stuff to influence what we do next. And as I said at the last office hours, we really last office hours we really said we kind of wanted to hit refresh on these office hours and try to really grow this community. And I really appreciate all the people on LinkedIn and Twitter who have really helped socialize. I think we had about 600 or so registrants of people, at least interested in attending. Usually that means about 30% drop off based on experience. So that could be anywhere from 100 to 200 people joining the call today, which is awesome. Welcome. And so with that, we'll get started. Couple announcements and sort of some housekeeping that we'll go through. First and foremost, if you're not aware of the Power Platform Pro Dev Discord community, there is one. A lot of us will spend time on those. It's mostly driven by you folks in the community, but you'll see some of the people I'll be introducing commenting now and then in those conversations. So definitely encourage people to check that out. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the office hours are and what they aren't, kind of the rules of the road. This is not a NDA forum, right? So many of you might be MVPs or Microsoft customers who have an NDA with Microsoft. This is a public office hours, welcoming anybody to attend. So we'll be talking about non-NDA topics. So feel free, if you've ever been to a Microsoft NDA session, this is the exact opposite of don't tweet, don't blog, etc. You can tweet, blog, email, etc., whatever you want that is covered in this conversation, because we will only be talking about things that are communicable in the public domain. It's an opportunity for us in the product group to share with you what's new in terms of topics we think are of interest to professional developers or code first developers. As I mentioned, we'll occasionally do polls to influence future investments. And this is intended to be a monthly forum for folks to come and ask questions directly to the Microsoft product group members who are planning and building the capabilities of the platform that you're using. We'll ask questions about how something works, raise new feature requests, share ideas. It will be the third Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We have gotten some preliminary feedback from people that they'd like that time to change, especially folks who are outside of the US time zone. I actually preceded the AMA tool with a question about that. So vote that up. That'll help us give some indication. We will be happy to reconsider the time to be a little bit more inclusive of folks outside of US time zones. But we do record these. And one of the things I will do is walk you through how you will be able to get access to the recordings. What these are not, and this is really important, this is not an introduction or a 101 session on code first developer topics for Power Platform. We really encourage you to use all of our documentation and learn platform. This is really for folks who have an understanding of these topics to come in and ask questions. This is not custom troubleshooting or debugging of your individual problem, whether it be our tools or across the platform in general. If you start asking questions about certain things that we don't consider part of the sort of problem domain of this community, we'll just defer that question and say, please ask your question in the forums, et cetera. If it's something that's personal troubleshooting that you ask, we'll ask you to file an issue on the right GitHub repo, et cetera. Or ask you to go, use your product support channels. This is not a forum for product-related questions outside of, again, what I mentioned earlier. That's what the forums are for. And last and not least, while I understand that it's a frequently asked question, the folks on this call are not licensing experts. We are the product managers and engineers actually building the product. And so we would ask you to, do your best to refrain from licensing questions. If they're simple ones and you want to ask them and we know the answers, we're happy to answer, but we might defer you to your Microsoft account team to help you get the more detailed questions answered. So if you got here already, you probably know how to register for the office hours, but you also may have already had this on your calendar. If you go to our GitHub community, you follow this aka.ms link, there's an ICS file that you can just download from GitHub, add it to your calendar. It will add the monthly series to your calendar, and then you won't have to register for this. There's no need to register. Now, if we choose to change the time, this will change. And so we will have to communicate to the community that, hey, the old ICS is no longer good. Use a new ICS, but hopefully we can use the power of social media to get the word out if we do decide to change the time. But as of now, put it on your calendar, and now you have a regularly scheduled option to come engage with us. So in no particular order, I want to introduce a few folks. The goal here, moving forward, is that we're going to invite folks across various parts of Power Platform who have responsibility in serving the pro dev extensibility of Power Platform. And in many cases, I will be, at least for now, the master of ceremonies, if you will, of the AMA tool and the intros, et cetera. And then we'll defer the question to whoever the expert on the call is. So I'm not going to try to answer every question. If Andrew, who is an engineer manager on the Power Apps team, is the best person, I'll say, hey, Andrew, what are your thoughts there? And then I might chime in. We've got Matt Barber, who is a longtime architect in Power Platform. I am Marc Schweigert. I'm the manager of the team in Power Apps that focuses on what we call Pro Dev, which means a lot of the tools that you use, like Pack CLI and many, many others, as well as a number of other things we're working on that we'll be talking about at Build. As I mentioned, Andrew is the engineering manager who focuses on a lot of these tools. We've got Mehdi and some of these people may or may not be on the call every time, but we've got Mehdi from the PowerCat team who builds a lot of community tools to help customers adopt the platform. Casey Burke, who's on leave this week, is from the Power Apps team that builds things like pipelines for Power Platform. We'll have Shan in the second half of the call. He's on the Dataverse team and owns the solution system, which is the ALM engine of Power Platform. We've got Marcel here, who is, as I'm sure many of you know, PM responsibility ebbs and flows. Marcel has been a PM for many of the tools that you use, including Pack CLI, Visual Studio extensions. He's currently working on a bunch of the Canvas YAML stuff. Sam Perlmutter is from the Power Apps co-authoring team. And while some people might be saying, hey, well, co-authoring isn't really a pro dev thing, we kind of think that it's important that co-authoring and, ALM and pro dev activities all kind of work in seamless ways. So we've asked Sam to join us. So feel free to ask questions about co-authoring, because pro dev is really a bit of an overloaded term. I am a citizen developer sometimes, I'm an advanced maker sometimes, and I'm a pro dev sometimes, right? And so I'm sure many of you fit into that same kind of category. Peter is on the pro dev team too. He's also the PM for Test Engine. He also is responsible for the F&O, professional developer experiences. We've got Chris Carty from the Power Automate team, who focuses on a lot of admin, governance, and professional developer topics and focus areas from Power Automate. Anthony Sheehy, or Shihai, Anthony, correct me where I'm wrong on pronouncing your name, is also from the team that builds pipelines for Power Platform. We've got Robert Standifer, who is responsible for a new initiative called Power Well Architected, which is really intended to be I won't steal Robert's thunder, but a framework for architects to understand how to plan and use Power Platform at enterprise scale, which then feeds into the tools that we build, for example, for pro devs. And last but certainly not least, our friends Peter and Jim, who are technical writers who build and help us build a lot of the great content on Learn, that helps you get more familiar with Power Platform in and of itself. So that was an introduction of a lot of people. The point here is that we really want to bring all the right people available to you folks in the community to answer the questions that you have, and make sure that it's not me answering it my best guess, but Jim or Sam or Andrew, right? We can just ask them to answer the question as openly and transparently as possible. All right, so one of the things I want to do is hand over to Andrew. This is something that we used to do in the CAT Tools office hours for things like the COE starter kit. We want to get better at appreciating the community for their contributions to the work that we do. As many of you know, a lot of our tools are open source, right? And contribution is a funny word. It doesn't necessarily mean PR or code contribution. Lots of people provide contributions by initiating discussions, suggesting features that the community votes up. And so we really want to make sure that people understand that, we want to engage with you more. We want your participation. We're listening, and we want to take action on as much of your feedback as we can. So, Andrew?
Yeah, we just wanted to say a big thank you for community contributions. And like Mark said, it's not just PRs, it's not just code. For example, each time we release versions, we immediately go to GitHub, we go to Discord to monitor and see, is there any chatter, did we break anything, so we can quickly fix it. And some contributions can be like just discussions topics, and when we see people upvoting, it means it's important for community just to get answers to this topic, or some kind of provide roadmap, sometimes questions about roadmaps and where we are going. And we just wanted to highlight a few just as an example. There are many more contributions, PR contributions, ideas. And just a few links. Here's the repositories that we are our team using, but there are probably more. I didn't list all of them here, but these are major ones. And top ones, it's Dataverse Service Client that Matthew Barber is driving, Model Builder. We have open source actions. These are build tool actions and GitHub actions. And there is a new one, Power Apps tooling. We are also experimenting with. That's pretty much it. I want to keep it short, Mark. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that. All right. So first thing we'll do, Anthony, are you on the call?
Yep, I'm here.
Right on. So I'm going to hand over to Anthony. Anthony, I'm just going to share my desktop, and you can kind of tell me when to scroll. Right.
Okay, perfect.
So what we'll do is we'll just start off. Casey Burke and Anthony and Casey are teammates, right? Just published an update on, a blog post on updates on ALM. We view ALM as a topic that is important to the pro dev community and Power Platform. So I've asked Anthony to kind of go through and give us a quick high level overview of what the blog post is about. Again, the goal of these is not to deep dive on the blog post or the announcements. It's just to give you the visual cues and the to-dos to go review these things yourself. Take it away, Anthony.
Awesome. And yeah, there's a lot jam-packed into this blog, so I don't know how high level I should keep it, or if you all want to ask questions, feel free.
Just riff on it. Go for it.
All right. So first, Casey has defined ALM as 4 different pillars here, and we may have talked about them before, but the first being initiate. So admins and power makers to get started easily. And the first exciting new feature that actually was just released in public preview is environment groups and rules. So that allows admins to group environments, manage environments into a special group that you can apply rules to. And one exciting rule that is already available for you is automatically routing them to specific development environments, in addition to setting sharing limits as well. So these two combined also will enable our ALM permissions, I guess, for lack of a better word, to allow makers to know when they should be deploying, for example, using pipelines. And then in addition to that, there's also an upcoming feature that we will be releasing once environment groups goes GA, and that is setting a default deployment pipeline, which will allow you to bulk associate environments within that environment group to a pipeline. So this way you don't have to do it manually, especially if you have hundreds of environments in that group. So that's something else that's really exciting. There's a couple of other features in here, such as secure pipelines and approvals, which you may already be aware of. And that's like with delegated deployments. And there's also even more goodness that is related to that, blocking unmanaged customizations as well in environments. So that's making sure that makers cannot actually make customizations in like a production environment, for example, locking it down to just be what it is, production, right? You can't make changes there if you want to enact healthy ALM. He goes through, and then this is the build pillar with setting a preferred solution is another feature that just recently came out, which allows makers to set a solution that they want their components to be going into. For example, when you go to create an app, it used to be that it would just go to the default solution. But if you set a preferred solution, all of those components will actually be placed into the solution you choose. So it makes it easier to enable makers to start using solutions and using them correctly and keeping things more organized, or rather keeping components more organized. So this way deploying is also easier. Another very exciting feature is drafts and versioning. So with Solution Cloud Flows, this is a recent update that has been made to allow people who are maybe even collaborating on a flow to track version history of the flow. You can also save a draft of flows, which I know is something that customers have been asking for a while. So I'm glad that Chris and team finally got it in there. That's really cool. And it also helps us enable ALM. What else do we have? We have test, which is the third pillar that Casey has defined here. And that is the integration of Solution Checker with pipelines. So that happened, I think, late last year. So that's one thing that really enhanced pipelines capabilities to ensure that solutions were all good before deploying. Pipelines, like I said before, can also be extended to run either additional code, security scanning, or have approvals or tests. And also there are ways that you can integrate source control into your deployments using extensibility, but that will soon become easier. I don't know if we go into that yet, but then of course you have the release, and that is also including a lot of cool new features. For example, in sharing limits now, there is an on-ramp to use pipelines. So as you see here, there's a sharing limit notification saying that you can't share with more than 2 people in this environment. However, you can start the deployment process to get your solution or your app in the right place to be able to share with more people. So we've made it easier to redirect to pipelines to use, so this way makers are well informed and actually have something to take action on when they hit a sharing limit, for example. So what else do we have? Sharing requested during deployments. So this is something that's brand new. This is really exciting because previously, and this was the only thing that was holding us back from having delegated deployments in GA, and that is now you will be able to share solution components or create a share request with the deployment process itself. So being able to select components in your solution that you want to give access to another group for is now a step in the deployment pipeline or the deployment configuration process. So this is sharing for Canvas apps, soon for Cloud Flows, and then also security roles as well to be able to use the components in your solution properly, and setting that to designated teams in the target environments as well. And then, I feel like I'm just riffing off on all these new features. It's crazy. ALM has really evolved over the past, I think, even 6 months. But we've also included a change that allows you to view all connection references. Actually, that's rolling out now. to be able to view all connection reference values in a solution, and then also environment variable values as well. So we've made the process a lot more transparent in that you can see what values your environment variables are taking on, whether they're from the target environment or whether they're from the solution you're importing. So this way, makers have full visibility when they're deploying to see whether or not these environment variables are what they want, and the connection references are also what they want, which a lot of customers had been asking for. So we finally delivered. And then, yeah, what else do we have here? There's
Maybe
also
redeploy and then wrap.
Yeah, sounds good. Yes. And then we got redeploy. That's also a brand new feature that just came out, I believe, last month, which allows a solution downgrade. And this is also something that is available using dev tools as well. This is not just a pipeline specific thing. However, we have enabled it in the UI with pipelines. So that allows makers who might have messed up and shipped something to production that broke it to revert back to a previous version. You can restore a previous version by redeploying that version through the pipeline if you're using pipelines. And I don't have specifics on the dev tools, but if somebody else does, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I'll cover that quickly. So real quick, just to kind of wrap up, Build is coming in May, right? Microsoft Build Conference, and a lot of us are excited to share some of the work that we've been working on that maybe we haven't disclosed just yet. And I think Anthony maybe teased some stuff, and we'll probably tease some stuff here and there, right? So definitely, pay attention to Build. In terms of those who want to get access to recordings for this call, if you click on this link, right, this AKAMS link in the blog post, there is a whole instructions of getting recordings, adding the ICS, or if you just want to come to this page and click the meeting link, you can do that as well. The other thing I'll just call out is that a lot of people often ask me, how do I know what's new in PackCLI, the VS Code extension? It's what I've realized, it's a little known fact that we publish release notes. And so I've got links to all the release notes here. I'm not going to go through the change logs, but you can follow them yourselves. One of the things we will get better at, I've got an action item to do this, is I'm going to go back through all the dev documentation and make sure that the release notes links are on the Learn platform, so you can discover month over month. And for example, you may or may not see it, but some of our tools will actually give you a little link, like PackCLI will give you a link that says, hey, click on this link to learn more, and then you can find more, and you'll be able to then see the release notes there, etc. All right, so with that, we're going to go back to the slides. And Robert, you with us?
Sure am. Just
Right
hitting mute in all the different places where I have to hit mute. Opening up my camera thingy. Here I am. Wow, I wasn't prepared, Mark. But so yeah, I wanted to take a few minutes. I'm really happy to be invited to this and kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit on a Power Platform well architected. As Mark shared at the beginning of the call, I'm Robert Standifer. I work in a group called PowerCat, where Mark used to work with me. And I'm in charge of all of our patterns and practices for Power Platform. And Power Platform well architected, or I also call it Power well architected for short, POWA. I shipped this at the end of March in kind of a preview. And so I just wanted to share that up front because there's still a lot of stuff that we're doing with Power well architected over the next several months and well into the future. But in a nutshell, it's meant to give you the high-level architecture guidance to support you in the design, planning, and implementation of your Power Platform workloads. Leaning a bit more heavily on Power Apps, but inclusive of Power Automate, Power Pages, and in the near future, Copilot Studio. So it's based on 5 pillars, which I'll talk about in a second. And essentially, we want to provide this as the foundation of all of the different guidance that we provide for Power Platform that go into more deep details that are around things like coding standards and the patterns for building applications, well into things like for adoption and strategy. So Power well architected specifically, just to kind of set the context, it's focused on the what and the why for architecture. So it describes things that are intended for behaviors in your organization to build and optimize well-architected workloads. And it points you to the how guidance and documentation, the features that you would leverage to implement the recommendations.
Robert, is it fair to say that for folks who have an Azure background or familiarity with Azure, it's inspired by Azure well-architected framework, but done in a unique nature that is for Power Platform?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I neglected that detail. It's definitely inspired and influenced by Azure well-architected framework, and it's intended to be used alongside Azure well-architected framework. So if you are working on Azure workloads and you're going through well-architected for Azure, and you're thinking about how your Power Platform workloads work with and in your Azure workloads, the intention is for Power well-architected to go right along with that. So on the next slide, these are the 5 pillars: reliability, security, operational excellence, experience optimization, and performance efficiency. And performance efficiency ships around later this month, early May. We're putting some fine tuning on that one, but the first 4 pillars are currently live on Power Platform Well Architected, and thank you, Phil, for sharing that link. The pillars are quality attributes of an architecture. And those quality attributes can be reflected in the architecture itself and in the organization responsible for the architecture. So reliability can be used to describe attributes of your workloads architecture, as well as how you and your team go around building reliability, security, and operational excellence into the development of your workloads. So this is a living thing. I don't think that on March 31st, when we shipped it, that we had all the right answers forever and ever for everything you'll ever do with Power Platform. It's the best that we know. Patterns and practices are always evolving. Yeah, you can jump to the next slide. So as patterns and practices are always evolving, we depend on your feedback and your experiences, because all of this stuff is customer experience based. It's not ivory tower thinking. So the way the guidance works, you start with the assessment. And the assessment ships later this month with the performance efficiency when Power Architected hits out of preview and goes. I'm not going to say GA because that's not what it is, but goes fully live. And the assessment, if you've gone through Azure WAF or looked at the other assessments that we have on Microsoft Learn, it asks you a bunch of questions about your workload and how you're building it. And from that takes you to the specific guidance in Power Well Architected that applies to what you're trying to do. And the guidance takes the form of 4 things: a set of design principles for each pillar, a checklist of recommendations to go through for each pillar based on your assessment. You can also do a self-assessment if you don't use the tool. The recommendation guides, there's an article, a recommendation article for each item in the checklist. And then each pillar has a set of trade-offs to help you evaluate how optimizing for one pillar will influence or impact the others. So for example, if reliability talks about limiting customization to make it easier to support your code, but experience optimization talks about using customization to provide the best experience for your users, then you'll have a trade-off between those 2 things as a kind of a simple example. So you can check out Power Platform Well Architected at ak.ms/powa, and we have a GitHub where you can leave issues if you have any problems or suggestions, and I'm always happy to hear from folks about this as well. And as we go, hopefully Marc will invite me to this office hours in the future, and I'll have a lot more hands-on things to share in the future office hours around things like coding standards.
Awesome. So thanks, Robert. Just quick time check. As you know, I said in the beginning, we tend to target at least half of the office hours for announcements. 15 minutes to a half hour for announcements, then a half hour for Q&A. We're a little over today. We knew we would go a little over just because we wanted to kind of reestablish, and kind of hit refresh on the office hours. We've got one more team to give you an update, and then I promise you we will get to the AMA. Mateus, you there?
I'm Matt Dotson. I'm going to jump in and give the overview.
Matt. No, I didn't know it was you, Matt. Thanks.
So I'm part of the Industry Solutions Engineering team, and we are a customer-facing org. We're not part of the product team. We go and work with our biggest customers to kind of try to, do some things at scale and learn about their frictions and try to share our learnings as open source code. So one of the things that we've done, we're a pro dev organization that's often kind of building solutions that are spanning Power Platform and Azure. And we kept running into issues where the way that we provision and deploy infrastructure for the Azure part of our solution is not the same as we do for the Power Platform side. And one of the common tools on the Azure side and AWS and GCP is Terraform, which is an infrastructure as code tool, which allows you to kind of define your desired state of your infrastructure as declarative code and let the Terraform kind of engine go and figure out, what order should it go, create those things, manage the entire lifecycle. So create them, continuously monitor if they've been updated, detect drift, rectify it, reapply changes back to that, and ultimately, decommission and destroy some of those environments. So one of the things that was missing was I could do all that with Azure. I could do all that with Azure AD, but there was not a provider for managing Power Platform infrastructure. So our team went and built out the connection so that Terraform will know how to manage environments and DLP policies, solutions, all that sort of stuff, to give us the power to kind of define these multi-cloud applications and the infrastructure behind that. And this has become really helpful for us in terms of things like Copilot Studio, where we have things that are based on the Power Platform, but also have stuff that's in Azure OpenAI. Where we're connecting to things like SAP, where we need a SAP gateway, and also have some Power Automate stuff. I saw one of the questions in the chat was about Synapse Link. So you can think about hey, spinning up the one lake for Fabric, and then also being able to make that connection on the infrastructure side. We also saw from a bunch of customers they wanted to be able to do governance at scale. So being able to create out templates and provision stuff, as well as detect drift. There are a lot of requirements around regulated industries about being able to attest to the regulators that all the environments are in the state that they intended them to be, and being able to track when things change or not. And then also just kind of deploying out templates hey, I want to, a dev team comes and asks for a new set of environments. Let's go build them out a bunch of dev, test, prod, and also spin up the pipelines environment so they're all connected, and you just kind of automatically do that as one big thing. So we have a quick demo on the next slide.
Hey, Matt, I hate to do this, but we're running short on AMA time. So can we maybe make the demo an action item for people to watch after the fact?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Right on.
Yeah, so we just went live in the Terraform registry yesterday. So our ask for this audience is to go check it out. There's some links to the documentation. This is a community-driven project, so we love people kind of giving us feedback. We love PRs. We're inviting all of you to kind of get your hands dirty and kind of help us build this out to be something that's really really helpful for all of us.
And one of the things that may be a little bit more implicit than explicit, but the Terraform provider that Matt and team has builds on top of a lot of the tools that then the other folks on the call from the product group have built, right? APIs, Pack CLI, et cetera, right? And so it's just, we partner with them and we work with them to make sure that our tools do the things that they need to be able to do the thing that they're building with a Terraform provider. So thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, so now if you haven't already opened up the AMA tool one last time, this is how you get to it. There's the AKMS link that you can just use directly, or if it's faster to do the /PowerAMA and punch in the code, it's 3059. If folks haven't already done that, can somebody paste that into the chat? And with that, we are going to switch over to the actual tool. And I'm going to pin the first question so it doesn't pop. Any plans to invest more in the PCF build tooling? Some good points here, and it's a link to one of the discussions on our Power Platform build tools GitHub repo. So I'll defer that. Maybe I'll start with you, maybe, Andrew.
Yeah, we're discussing it, and we're looking for some ideas, but I don't think we have anything to say about improvements right now.
So what I would suggest here, and is the 7 of you who thumbs up this for discussion in the call, do it on the GitHub discussion as well, right? Go talk to your friends who want this as well, and engage in the discussion on GitHub. And the more traffic we see, the more thumbs up on the discussion itself. That is a signal to us in terms of the demand within the community, right? And engage with us there, and let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and especially more details, like what kind of improvements are you looking for, and because some small ones, and when we see lots of people are asking, and a small one, we'll just quickly do it. So please, go to GitHub, share.
Awesome, thanks, Andrew. Can you automate the import of an Azure Synapse link for Dataverse from a managed solution into the environment? Otherwise, there will always be a manual action required in a production environment. I'm not sure who's on the call. Shan, did you make the call just yet? I can't tell if he's in the chat or not. I wonder if this is maybe something Shan knows. I don't know off the top of my head, so this is something that, unless there's somebody from the Microsoft side who raises their hand in Teams, we will probably need to follow up on, but we will make sure to do so. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Next one. Are there any plans to update pack PCF init -- framework React command to make use of the newer Fluent UI v9 packages and scaffold a PCF project as such?
I guess it's to us again. Yeah, for Pack CLI, we are dependent on what Power Platform supports and Maker Studio supports. So we're trying to keep in sync. So that's sometime why we are not exactly on latest Fluent, for example. So we're just matching the current version.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Can you automate? Oh, that's the one I already asked. Please explain the difference between Canvas app packages and Power App solutions and solution packages. The documentation indicates these are not compatible. What is the use case for each, and why two different? Looks like somebody muted me. Let me read that again. I don't know if I read the whole question, but please pin that one. Please explain the differences between Canvas app packages, Power App solutions, and solution packages. So I'll try to take the first crack at this one. And if I think Matt's out of the office today, so Matt's not on the call, and I'm not sure if Shan was able to make it. He was hoping to make the second half, but
Marc, you're muted again.
Muting me, could you please not do that? I would appreciate that. So let me try to explain this as much as I can. So Power Platform, sort of in its history, came from different technologies. I'm not sure how I'm getting muted.
Probably. Yeah, Marc, maybe there's some key that might have been pressed that
I am not touching any keys, I promise you. All right, so I will try this one more time, and if it doesn't work with me, I'll ask somebody else to try to give an explanation. So what we call Power Platform today, and I keep looking to make sure I'm not muted now, comes from some technologies that came together. So Canvas, for example, and Power Automate had a previous export-import technology that allowed you to move Canvas and Power Automate flows from one environment to another. Over time, as Dataverse, what is now called Dataverse, and Canvas and Power Apps and Power Automate merged, the decision was made, and this was many years ago, that Power Platform solutions, which are homed in Dataverse, would be the ALM engine of the future. And fundamentally, the legacy export-import that came with Canvas apps and Power Automate has not been invested in significantly. All the investment has gone into solutions as the ALM engine of the platform. So if the legacy export-import still works for you, certainly use it as is. But if you need more than what it provides, use Power Platform solutions. And there may come a day where the legacy export-import doesn't exist anymore because solution solves all the same problems. Now, solution packages is often a term referred to that synonymously with a technology called package deployer. Package deployer allows you to take multiple solutions, package them up, as well as with things like data imports and doing things that you might want to do programmatically as part of an end-to-end deployment through a package deployer package, including things like before you import your solution, flip environment settings to a certain value, like enable PCF for Canvas, so that when your solutions import, they import in a working state. You've got your reference data or your lookup data, et cetera, and your app is ready to go in a full deployment, right? So that is the difference between the three. Over time, you can expect to see package deployer, which the technology, get incorporated into many places, and all of this get more seamless and less distinct. So a couple examples. Package deployer is the backing technology you use to publish to app source. That's the same backing technology if you've learned about catalog for Power Platform. You build package deployer packages and you publish them to the catalog. Catalog for Power Platform is simply the same engine under the hood that serves us internally at Microsoft for deploying solutions to thousands of environments. It's the same engine that serves AppSource. It's the same engine that can now serve you as your own mini app source, for lack of a better term, within your tenant. And you can imagine someday in the future that even deployment through pipelines for Power Platform makes all of this stuff easier. And as you look at catalog, stay tuned at Build for some things that we're doing to make it even easier to get your solutions into a package deployer package and published to catalog. But you can imagine these kind of all coming together over time, feeling less distinct and more unified. Hopefully that answered the question. All right, the next one. I gotta skip that one. I keep pinning that one. People ask for pack enhancements from time to time on GitHub. There's a bunch of examples. An extension model for pack would be helpful for the community to pitch in. The discussion on GitHub was closed with no response. Please comment whether there's a roadmap this year. So Andrew, maybe I'll take this and then you can pile on, right? Couple things, and I'm gonna read between the lines in this. We absolutely have said in the past, and we still do have aspirations to not only enable extensibility, but more importantly, enable contributions to pack in the future, right? That is easier said than done, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be done for us to effectively open source. For those of you who are familiar with Power Platform build tools and GitHub Actions, the pack wrapper that's still a private repo, pack CLI itself, it is something we want to do. It is something that Andrew and I are actively talking about, right? And even the notion like AZ CLI has, where you can say AZ extension install, and I forget the exact, noun verbs, but AZ has this concept like AZ ships with its core features, and then you can pull down the Azure DevOps extension to AZ. These are things that we absolutely have discussed and we want to do, but there's also other priorities that we have to focus on. And so it's that classic software development challenge of all this great stuff on your backlog and when to do what, right? Andrew, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, just a little bit. And like Mark said, we are discussing, we are aware of community desire to have this open sourced. And we just want to make sure we're doing it the right way, not just, copying source over to GitHub and be done with it. We want to make sure community is engaged. We want to make sure we have a documentation, how to contribute. We want to make sure we have resources who can review and approve pull requests. So there is some work required, but we are definitely inspired. We want to do it, and like Mark said, we're discussing it, different models. We discussed extension model, like it was mentioned on comments. We discussed about open sourcing, a whole Pack CLI or pieces. We are in active discussions.
All right, so thanks, Andrew. So the next question is I'm going to just interpret as asking the same question a different way. And so I think we've answered that. I know the person that asked the previous question wanted some timelines. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to give you timelines right now, but certainly we understand the benefit of it, both for the community as well as for us at Microsoft, and it is something we're seriously considering. All right, so the next one I'm going to pin is updates and improvements for the GitHub Actions and Power Platform build tools and Pack CLI. So I'll answer this in two ways, and again, Andrew, I'll let you chime in if you want to add some more. If you're looking to keep up with the updates, hopefully we showed you how to do that with the release notes, and we will make that more discoverable through documentation on Learn. If you're looking more to understand what updates are coming, you know, the general, all of these tools have gotten to a certain level of maturity. So we really are looking for feedback on what are some of the most important updates. I think Andrew kind of teased some of the community feedback that we're researching now around improved authentication and being able to use credentials without passwords. Maybe you want to, you know, talk a little bit more in general, Andrew?
Yeah, and also open sourcing and improvements. For example, GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps build tools are open source, but we understand there are challenges because they rely on Pack CLI, and Pack CLI and the wrapper on top of Pack CLI are not open source. So for people, it's not easy to contribute. But what Mark was talking about, community feedback about passwordless authentication, federated credentials, we are listening. So please do, even if you just go vote for issues you think are important, please keep voting. For example, federated credentials, we're looking at managed identity improvements. We're looking at how to improve it. And I think Terraform did some federated credentials recently.
Thanks, Andrew. Next question. Is there any timeline to move beyond the .NET Framework 4.6.2 for plugins? And for those of you who may not have as much of a Dataverse background, plugins refers to the ability to write .NET code that you deploy to Dataverse, you plug into the event pipeline of Dataverse, or create explicit API extensions using .NET code that live within Dataverse. The short answer is Matt's not on the call, and he's the best person to answer that question. We don't have any timelines to provide to update. As you can imagine, it is a pretty complex thing to move from, and it has been an effort that's been ongoing for a long time. We are getting closer, and you know, hopefully, maybe by next month, you know, Matt will have something more detailed to share from a timeline perspective. But I don't think there's anything I am aware that I can share right now about timelines. All right, so next one. It would be nice to have the ability to switch between the serialized YAML and maker-friendly versions of PowerX formulas, especially when editing in the various Monaco editors. This is maybe an opportunity for the person, if you don't mind removing your anonymity, right, to come off mute and ask, and if you're comfortable having your voice recorded, because we do share these publicly. But let me maybe address this generally. I teased last month that we are taking Canvas YAML, which has been an external tool and an experimental project for a couple of years now, and we're bringing it into the service natively. We will not share a whole lot more detail beyond that until Microsoft Build. Please stay tuned for Microsoft Build. We will be talking about this quite a bit, of where we're going with all of the Canvas YAML, PowerFX, you know, source code concepts moving forward. And so we'll leave that one at that. Next one. Will something similar to the solution checker come back for C# plugins? I've seen iPlugin implementations as stateless issues too many times. Not sure if we have, probably a good question. I'm guessing for Divya, and maybe I don't think I invited her to this call, and I'll ask her to come to the next one, perhaps, if she can make it. I'm not aware of anything coming to, doesn't mean it's not coming, right? Like all of us work in our little silos and we have to all come together to make sure our stuff works seamlessly together. But off the top of my head, I'm not aware of anything coming to Solution Checker in terms of enhancements for like effectively plug-in static analysis or analysis of design and implementation issues with plugins. But it's something that I will certainly take as an action item to follow up with the Dataverse team on. Oops, I marked that as answered and I did not mean to, so I apologize. I think the question was, is there a place to go find updates from the product group? We're starting with the office hours, raising awareness for people on our release notes, etc. But certainly give us more feedback. And whoever asked the question, if you want to put a follow-up question in the tool, I would appreciate it. Give us feedback specifically what else you think could help you. But this really is intended to be that general forum. So not many people have voted this one up. Oh, I did it again. I keep hitting the check mark, not the pin mark, but whether we should change the time of this call, right? And so that's something we'll continue to get a pulse from the community on. If we don't get a lot of demand to change the time for the call, or people outside of the US time zone are okay with watching the recordings, then we'll keep the time. Otherwise, we'll continue to reevaluate. All right, this time I will pin it. Power Platform pipelines and some deep dive into how to customize pipelines with our own cloud flows, and also using option of Azure App Identity to deploy to prod. I'd also like to provide some feedback based on our experience, which could reach to necessary product teams inside of Microsoft. So a couple things. Let me just jump to the browser and I'll just search for pipelines for Power Platform.
Extend.
Right. Oh, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the chat.
I can find it in the nav. There you go. So there is a section on extensibility that talks about overview of how to extend pipelines, how to deploy with a service principal. There's even a hello world example of how to, as you deploy, export, unpack, commit your source code as an archive, right, into a GitHub repo. So I would say, please use the Learn platform's feedback mechanisms to give us more specific feedback on what other
you want to
guidance
scroll down and show them where that is?
Yeah, so if you click on the feedback.
Nope, right at the bottom of the page.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You're talking about the larger one? So you can give short feedback here, which is probably not the right thing to do for this example. But then down at the bottom, there is opportunity to give feedback as well. Now, the approach to this is changing. The Learn team is kind of letting people know, but you can actually give feedback for a particular Learn page, and it'll create GitHub issues and we'll track it. The process will be changing over time, but we encourage you not just to say, make it better, right? Because we don't know what make it better means to you. Like, give us very specific details of what needs to be better, what is missing, etc. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, and I'll mention that, so in the overview of extending pipelines, there's down near the end of that page, there's a pipelines extensibility samples section that has a link to a sample solution. So it has a bunch of examples of extensions that you could just tweak and use as needed.
Right on. Thanks, Chris. All right. We're getting towards the end, but I'm going to try to squeeze in one more. When will integrated tests supporting MFA be available for ADO build tools or GitHub Actions with Test Studio and Test Engine? So this is one question rolled into some others. So this will be the last question, and we are heavily looking at our plans around Test Engine right now. We don't have details to share, but literally the last few days, a lot of my energy has been around building a plan around Test Engine, which addresses both the MFA challenges as well as figuring out how we get Test Engine to a GA state. Stay tuned. Maybe at build, maybe sooner, maybe a little bit after build. but we don't have details to answer, but it is high on our priority to make sure that we can GA test engine. And then, as you can imagine, I will then start talking to Casey and team and Anthony about how maybe one day we might be able to use pipelines for Power Platform to run test engine tests as a quality gate pre-deployment, right? Now, that is all aspirational. We have to GA a test engine first and address the known limitations, right? But that is something we are actively working on right now. With that, we are at time. I want to thank people for attending. I want to apologize to people who we didn't get your questions answered. We will get better moving forward. More time for questions, less time for announcements. We wanted to get a few things in this time to kind of hit refresh on the office hours. If you found this valuable, please spread the word, get your friends to come, watch the recordings, make sure people are aware of the recordings, and we will see you next month. Thank you.